To anyone who's made Let's Plays or commentary or any other kind of YouTube video, you've probably seen Audacity before. It's a lightweight, feature-filled, easy-to-use audio recording program. Pretty much everybody uses it. Even a lot of the big players in the YouTube scene use it. Because it's just as good, and sometimes even better, than professional options like Adobe Audition. And the recent controversy surrounding it is that it's now a possible spyware. The famous open-source audio manipulation program was acquired by a company named Muse Group 2 months ago. The same company owns other projects in its portfolio such as Ultimate Guitar and MuseScore. Ever since then, Audacity has been a heated topic. The parent company is a multinational company and it has been trying to start a data collection mechanism in the software. While Audacity is nothing more than a desktop program, its developers want to make it phone home with various data taken from users' machines. And here's a look at their new terms of service. What personal data does Audacity collect and why? They'll collect your operating system version, your country based on your IP, details about your computer, non-fatal error codes and messages, and crash reports. The IP is a bit sketchy, but this is pretty normal for most programs. However, they also collect for legal enforcement, data necessary for law enforcement, litigation, and authorities' requests, if any. What does that mean? Well, nobody knows. They're not telling us. But it is entirely possible that they could be just collecting copies of anything that you record with the program. Who does Audacity share your personal data with? Our staff members? Any competent law enforcement body, regulatory, government agency, court, or other third party? Our auditors, advisors, legal representatives, and similar agents? And to a potential buyer. At the same time, they also added this clause. The app we provide is not intended for individuals below the age of 13. If you are under 13 years old, please do not use the app. In many parts of the internet-using world, there's pretty strict laws regarding data collection from people who are under the age of 13. So it really sounds like Audacity plans to collect all of your data, like every other app out there, and sell it in order to make some kind of a profit. In essence, Audacity has become spyware. Audacity uses the GPL3 license. It's a license for open source software, mainly because people who make free software don't want it being stolen by big corpos. How it works is, GPL code is considered to be free and open source, meaning anyone can use it and no one can charge money for it. And how the license works is that if you use any GPL code from somebody else's project, then all of the code in your project also has to be GPL. GPL software legally has to be free and cannot have any restrictions on who can use it. Audacity's new owners are trying to circumvent this by having their coders sign new agreements to change Audacity's license over to a different one, which would allow it to be sold as regular software. But to do so, they have to rewrite code that was made by GPL contributors, especially those who are refusing to sign. And yes, this is a violation of the GPL license, because derivative works are also legally covered by GPL, meaning that if you look at, say, a GPL program and say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this license bullshit, I'll just remake it looking at this. Well, that's still covered by the license. Because if you're just rewriting the code to do the exact same thing, for the explicit purpose of replacing existing code, you are absolutely in for a legal battle. And if Audacity's new owners successfully manage to actually do this, there will likely be a new license. Because the current license is GPL3, they're likely going to make GPL4, which closes all of these loopholes. In other words, people are fucking pissed. And I don't blame them, man. This is a reliable piece of software that's been used for over a decade. And now that it's in the hands of new owners, they're suddenly harvesting everybody's data. This affects Audacity 3.0.0 or later. So if you still want to use the program, get a previous version. Additionally, get it from a site that's not the Audacity official site, just in case. But as always, there's a wider story here. And the story is that of privacy. Every website seems to be going in the shitter nowadays. And they're all requiring like a phone number or a picture of your photo ID or something. They want you to basically plant a beacon at your house and let everybody know where you are. And it's rather ridiculous, isn't it? At least to my sensibilities it is. I'm old enough that I come from an era of the internet where like your parents and PSAs and stuff on TV would say, hey, don't give out your private information online. That's dangerous. Who knows who might be out there? And you know what? That's still true, and everybody's forgotten it. At one point, being anonymous used to be prudent, until Facebook made being publicly identifiable trendy. It's not just Twitter and Facebook. It's even more niche things like GitHub, or those Snapchat and Instagram personality quizzes. The most recent push against anonymity is happening due to the soccer situation over in Europe right now. I will have a video with Lilith and I talking about that situation more in depth, but we can do a surface level right now for this conversation. Piers Morgan went viral a couple days ago for this stunningly stupid take. Racist abuse targeted at England football stars exposes social media's biggest failing. It's time tech firms ban all anonymous accounts and insist on ID so we can see how brave these bigoted scumbags feel when they're made accountable. In the name of progressive values, get rid of anonymity. Of course, it's not just soccer players. It's actors and comedians and verified people of all stripes. None of them like the fact that they can actually be talked back to, that a commoner actually has a method by which they can point at them and say, "No, you're ridiculous, fuck off." They simply want to be able to rule unchallenged. Here's Old Man Devo story number 9000 on this channel. 2 in 1 video, in fact. But when I was younger, and the left was the dissident voice and not the main culture, anonymity was highly valued among progressives, because they feared retaliation from the religious conservative monoculture. But now that these people are in charge, now that they're the ones wielding power, the protection of being anonymous has to go. And yeah, they all feel this way. Boris and Parliament should stop online racism in its tracks by passing legislation forcing Twitter and Facebook in the UK to have only named accounts, checking people's details, and banning anonymous ones. It happens in betting, so why not social media? Come on, Zuckerberg. Literally an online papers, please. Social media companies need to step up and take accountability and action to ban abusers from their platforms, gather evidence that can lead to prosecution, and support making their platforms free from this type of abuse. Stop anonymity and require ID. Everyone saying this has a checkmark beside their names, obviously. None of them are anonymous, so they want none of us to be anonymous too. As a social media professional, yeah, you look like one, dude. I want everybody to understand this and the real issue. I've had to ban so many people on Facebook for the terrible things they've said. Anonymity definitely makes abuse easier because social media sites do a bad job of policing their spaces. These people never stopped being children. They simply substituted their parents for a larger authority, whether that be corporations or the state. Make verified ID a requirement for opening a social media account. Nearly 400,000 fucking idiots signed this petition. It's ridiculous that I now have almost 12,000 accounts blocked. Nearly all of them are anonymous. Requiring official ID would wipe out most trolling overnight. You have them blocked, man. What's the problem? Like, you've already solved the problem. Not all anonymous accounts are used for bile or trolling. Some people have them to protect their identity or their lives from others. And of course, the verified replies with, "Sorry, trolling is the top priority, I'm afraid. It's literally killing people. If you're worried about being identified, don't go on Twitter or Facebook." Trolling's literally killing people, guys. Some people have never been punched in the face, and it shows. Trolling is an issue. You need to get a grip. Like, you sound like a naive child who knows nothing. You're trash and your YouTube channel is trash. You have been reported. Prepare for a ban. These have to be the softest people that our species has ever created. Like, this is shit that kids would say back in the day. Now you have like 35-year-olds saying this shit. The truth is, though, a lot of these progressives want to ban anonymity, not because they're getting trolled. Well, maybe it's kind of because they're getting trolled, they don't have a spine. But more importantly, because every day their propaganda attempts are effortlessly destroyed and replaced by much more coherent analysis by idiots on Twitter named Fartbutt with Daily Dose Vegeta Piccolo avatars, who also post big titty anime porn on their accounts. And the verifieds are so fucking angry about it that every time they're showed to be the idiots that they are, they want that guy's bank account information, his address, and his place of employment so that they can use all of their clout to ruin him for daring to talk back. This is old hat, by the way. Remember when CNN doxed a guy for making fun of them? That was like 4 years ago. I did a video on it back in the day. The absolute worst site for abuse right now is Facebook. Not even Twitter, Facebook. And Facebook actually has a real name policy. So on some level, this isn't about being anonymous. It's about stopping dissent. And of course, we all know this, right? It doesn't matter that losing the right to be anonymous will hurt investigative journalists, or whistleblowers, or free expression and privacy rights people, or people who are gay or trans and still in the closet, or ex-Muslims hiding from an oppressive family, or people who are running away from oppressive regimes of all types. These people will continue to screech that being anonymous is inherently harassment and white supremacy and all this other nonsense, because they are simply puppets for tyrants. And of course we know the next step, right? As soon as you can easily identify somebody for even the slightest of grievances, well, why not strip everything from them? They're already guilty.
And I've got a plan. The time has come to not only find these people, not only to prosecute them for their lawless behaviour, but also basically to excommunicate them from our society. So forget about locking them up, forget about throwing away the key, forget about banning them from football stadiums, right? I've got a better idea. Instead, let's make it impossible for them to actually have a life. No bank account, no ability to travel, no passport, no benefits, nothing. Forget kick it out. Let's kick them out. We don't need them. Britain doesn't need them. Adios, amigos. And you don't like it because I've said that in Spanish.
No bank account, no ability to travel, no passport, no benefits, nothing. Of course, these people never call for this regarding, say, pedophiles or rapists. Maybe because they'd hit too many of their own. This ties into cancel culture, and like I said before, it's already been happening for years. This happened a little while ago. Academic Agent, a far-right YouTuber, allegedly a former Surrey lecturer, was let go by his university. Now, I don't agree with AA's politics that much, but should he be fired for them? No. Of course, his GoFundMe, meant to support him and his family during that time, was taken down. Because for people who have been cancelled, people who have had their anonymity stripped away from them, there is no more private life. Which is, again, why this stuff isn't liberal shit, but leftist shit. It's not liberals who say everything's political. We believe that it's important to have a non-political space, a private life. That being said, there are absolutely instances where leftists have been very pro-anonymous. Last year, somebody on GitHub programmed a face depixelizer. It does what it says. It'll take a pixelized face and reveal it using algorithms. And here are some of the leftist objections to it. Following the killing of George Floyd by police on May 25th, people of color across the US have been risking their lives in protests against police brutality and a deeply racist system. Police have been known to threaten, assault, and even kill protesters, identifying them using information gathered from social media as well as facial recognition algorithms. The highly questionable ethics of releasing a tool that could be used to subvert anonymization under any circumstance aside, releasing this right now is not only incredibly dangerous, but can and will get people killed. Any use of this technology is an aid to the illegitimate American police state, and police states all over the world. What you're doing is unethical, and will lead to more and more deaths from the savage police system of the United States. Of course, the problem is you can't really close a Pandora's box. Somebody will invent this eventually, though I do think it's hilarious that they're calling it narc code. During the Breonna Taylor protests, the protesters not only removed all white people, but also removed the press. They, too, didn't want to be filmed.
Did we say get the fuck out of here? Get the fuck out! All you white motherfuckers leave! All you white motherfuckers leave! You heard what the fuck I said, nigga? I will beat your ass for real fuck! Get the fuck out of here! Y'all got to fucking go! I said get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here!
A protest in DC saw protesters wearing masks, yes, because of COVID, but this wasn't allowed before, and shining lights into the cameras of media to prevent them from documenting who was actually there. Andy No pointed out that this is what Antifa were first doing to me back in 2018. Local journalists stayed silent or said conservative media didn't deserve support. It emboldened Antifa eventually to beat me and steal my equipment. Well, this is what happens. It starts with conservative media, and now it is all media. Also from Andy No. Law enforcement in Portland are expressing concern over Antifa's announced BLM direct action tonight in downtown. This was back in November of 2020. Video recording was banned, which is a predictor of planned violence. No streamers, no megaphones, no masters. The left absolutely understands the value of being anonymous. No one is ever going to get anything done if you're filming them and giving them years in prison or getting them killed, and for what? So you can get money in a stupid action shot? They absolutely want to go unseen. They want the media to report how stunning and brave they are, but not actually film them as they commit crimes. To the point that the Anarchist Library has an essay called In Defense of Smashing Cameras. This is where the left differs from the liberals in their defense of anonymity. Our concern is not concerning the so-called right to take pictures in a public place. We could care less about this boring defense that photographers resort to when critiqued. Our question is not, what are your rights in public? Rather, where do you stand when it comes to social struggle? How do you act to further the revolt? Simply put, journalists do not have any political right to a spectacle. They have the ability to participate in a moment of revolt, and they forego that capacity by consigning the event to a digital memory rather than a future possibility. While photographic evidence has been useful in the past, we maintain that by prioritizing documentation, in ignorance or indifference to its effect on an action, journalists are not comrades. This is not a liberal defense of being anonymous. This, in fact, strips away people's right to be a bystander. This is George Bush level "you're with us or against us" shit. And of course, they have 10 rules. 1. Contrary to what many protest photography tips tell you, don't get up close. 2. If there are faces in your shot, blur them. A simple swirl in Photoshop won't do. We're talking scrambling such that the police cannot reverse the process. 3. If there's distinctive or identifying clothing in your shot, blur them. 4. If certain identities stick out. The few black bodies in a white protest, for example. Delete the photo. 5. If you choose to participate as a spectator, keep in mind that even spectators participate here, then realize that your participation is secondary to those actively engaged in the moment of revolt. This means that you should step aside, even if that means losing the winning shot. 6. If possible, and it usually is, ask for consent, or indicate that you are taking a photo so that we have an option to turn away or decline. Yes, we get it. We're in a public place, you don't have to ask. But realize that failure to ask makes us suspicious of your motivations, and provides us with added reason to assert our capacity for opacity. 7. Your camera is a weapon. Friendly fire is not acceptable. 8. You are a partisan in a social war. Become involved in the struggles you choose to document. Should they be documented? If so, how should they be documented to spread their capacities? Become a comrade and earn the trust of those around you. Accepting professional activists. For the vast majority of us, this is not a career. 9. Photograph the police. So again, all of these rules apply only to them and not to their opponents. And 10. Infer more guidelines from the analysis above. The left does not defend being anonymous. It defends being anonymous for them. It's not just activists. It's not just activists that progressives want anonymity to protect. This conversation also links very well with the trans dead naming thing. There is this push by progressives recently to basically remove every possible barrier to changing your name and your gender. Even the fact that it might cost a little bit of money down at the DMV, that's too much. Most notably in the Destiny versus the Serfs debate, where Lance thought it was incredibly fucked up that Google required people to have their dead names on their official ID for security reasons. But if you can change your name at a whim with no cost, just easily snip all the cords to your past and then go off burden-free. I mean, it sounds nice, but what does that let you get away with? There have absolutely been instances of people changing their names to avoid connection to a prior crime. If you make this easier, even under the guise of trans rights, there will always be people who exploit it. MasterCard even created something called True Name, which allows transgender and non-binary people display their chosen name on their credit card, regardless of legal status. This is 100% gonna open the way to fraud and also trolling. Thanks, Twitter. And we can actually see the progressive hypocrisy on being anonymous, because even as they screech for protecting anonymity for their activists, they are absolutely, overwhelmingly the faction of cancel culture right now. And yes, I've done videos on cancel culture before, so we're not going to dig into it too deeply. But it is important to look at some examples specifically in terms of being anonymous. Let's start here. A Deliveroo rider in Berlin made the mistake of saying he thought Brexit was good to some Remainer British customers. They accused him of being a Nazi and he lost his job. As of early Sunday morning, 4 offensive tweets using an anti-gay slur remained active on Kyler Murray's Twitter account. I apologize for the tweets that have come to light tonight from when I was 14 and 15. I used a poor choice of word that doesn't reflect who I am or what I believe. Is this not fucking ridiculous? Shit posting as a kid, and it comes back to haunt you when you're an adult. I am so happy I did not grow up in the age of social media. Holy shit, dude. How Kevin Hart tweeted himself out of a job hosting the Oscars. Step 1. Be really mean to gay people for no reason. In 2011, he tweeted, "Yo, if my son comes home and tries to play with my daughter's dollhouse, I'm gonna break it over his head and say in my voice, stop, that's gay." Yes, humor was edgier back in the day. Yes, that's not a problem. You know what? It was better. The American Humanist Association has withdrawn an honor from Richard Dawkins. And I don't know, if you're an atheist and you're critiquing religion, I don't think it's racist to critique Islam. This is a Canadian sports program, and this went down last year. We apologize to Hal Johnson for the racism he experienced at TSN beginning in 1988. I mean, I'm sure it sucked, but it's 1988, dude. A 1971 Playboy interview featuring John Wayne's comments on race and sexuality have stirred a fresh debate. Holy fuck! How long has John Wayne been dead for? Who cares? The past was problematic. Fucking live with it. If I haven't yet made it clear to you, the point is, progressives view anonymity, as they view many other things, as a privilege. one set of rules for thee and another for me. And when some dumb fuck online says, oh, you're an anonymous account? No one's trying to dox you. Just present yourself, Mr. Anime Avatar. It sounds a whole lot like Goebbels saying, if you have nothing to fear, you have nothing to hide. A lot of these people, the progressives, the checkmarks, even the socialist activists who want this stuff, they're all pawns. None of them have any real power. But they are being used because the actual powers that be are moving on the anonymous question. And they're using the left's brain-dead defense of removing anonymity to justify doing so. As of April of this year, anonymous social media accounts in Australia might be gone. They may need 100 points of identification to use social media. A judge has granted the first known warrant for law enforcement to conduct a dragnet search through the DNA of 1.3 million people in the GED-matched genetic genealogy database. 86% of those users did not explicitly consent to law enforcement searches. The US wants smartphone location data to fight the coronavirus. The Pentagon is surveilling Americans without a warrant, revealed by a senator back in May. And as another reminder, this isn't new. Back in 2018, Jess Phillips was calling for the banning of anonymous social media accounts, and The Guardian was happy to support her on this. In the present day, Diane Abbott has said that social media companies should collect names and addresses of all social media users, stating that absolute anonymity on social media has had its day. Last week there was a huge controversy, as it was discovered that the NSA was actually spying on Tucker Carlson. There's definitely been a slow boiling the frog on the anonymity issue. Back in 2001, when we had the Patriot Act passed, they were saying they were only going to spy on foreign enemies. By 2013, we had learned that the NSA had spied on Americans, but nobody cared. By 2014, we had learned that the CIA had spied on the US Senate, but they were really sorry about it. By 2017, we had learned that the FBI had spied on Donald Trump while he was president, but I mean, he's Hitler, so who cares, right? By 2021, we had realized the NSA had spied on US journalists, but it's just Tucker Carlson, so who gives a shit, right? It has been both governments and corporations getting people used to the idea that it's okay if they're spied on, that it's okay if they don't have a private life. And it seems that people generally don't object to this until it's their job that's lost, or their friends that shun them, or their speech that's been silenced. Even Anonymous themselves, like the activist group Anonymous, has turned into a fucking joke. As my pal Brick once said before we got banned off Twitter, Anonymous in 2008, we DDoSed the Church of Scientology and tracked down pedophiles. Anonymous in 2020, Twitter please help us, they're ruining my poll. People, for like thousands of years at this point, people have understood the value of being anonymous, of being able to actually say what's on your mind. Literally speaking truth to power, that is what being anonymous allows for. To have a place that is private, to have a location where you don't have to be always on, to be able to regroup and then come back to those things that you find politically important in life with a renewed energy, or with renewed arguments or new ideas. In this video, I have done what in my opinion is a completely justified overlap between the concept of anonymity and the concept of privacy. Because when you take away one, you must necessarily take away the other. And that is absolutely what they're gunning for. They are gunning for not only your ability to be anonymous, to say things anonymously online, to not get fired over an old take from when you were a child, or a controversial political opinion that you really shouldn't be fired for. But what goes with that is also the ability to live privately, to not live in a glass house. At the same time, as a content creator who has been doxxed, I do kind of understand, like, the objection to it, right? Like, let's be honest here. Let's give the devil his due. If you're a streamer, especially if you're a lot bigger than me, I understand, like, larger streamers have this to the nth degree. But if you're a streamer or you're a video creator where everything you do is hate-watched and cataloged and then put into an archive for, like, 3 years, only to be pulled out later by somebody who absolutely fucking wants to destroy you, and that person, is completely anonymous. It does kind of seem unfair, doesn't it? Like, yes, it's part of the job, but like in the moment when it happens, it does feel unfair. But because it's generally progressives doing this sort of thing, and they want anonymity for them and not for you, they see no problems with this. They should be anonymous, and the creators they harass should absolutely not be. There's no principles here, there's simply power. So I understand it when a content creator says, hey, you're out here shitting on me and like hate watching me and cataloging everything that I do, but you're not going to step to the plate? Like, I understand their position. But at the same time, this is why progressives scream bloody murder when there is a popular, well-known content creator who manages to remain anonymous. And there are some of them. Like, I don't think anyone's doxed It's a Gundam yet, and people fucking hate him. But forcing everybody to be named is not the answer. In fact, it seems to me like a better answer is forcing everybody to be anonymous. That's why I still like places like 4chan and to a lesser extent Newgrounds. They still hold that principle. Now, there are some solutions floating around out there. One of them is the EU's right to be forgotten. The idea behind the right to be forgotten is that its proponents believe that there should be a right to have private information about a person removed from the internet. The problem with the right to be forgotten is that it directly clashes with the right to access of information, the right to education, and yes, the right to speech and the right to freedom of expression, as well as criticism over the possibility of using it to rewrite history or maintain censorship. Of course, there are good reasons to consider such a thing too. Not simply cancel culture or the right to be anonymous, but also stuff like revenge porn or having absolute falsehoods appear whenever you get your name searched on Google or something. However, the right to be forgotten, especially how the EU implements it, seems to be a sledgehammer of a tool, when the situation probably requires something more like a scalpel. Lilith had this idea, that doxing should be a federal crime. It's not free speech to post people's information for malicious purposes. Dankula replied with, I would argue that private administrational information about an individual is their private property that can only be shared with their permission. Tech companies that use data as currency would also be seething. That seems to target most of the bad parts of the equation here, without actually infringing on people's right to free speech. I do disagree with Lilith here, though. She says, none of that LOL, I found your information through extensive digging, so it's basically public. I get what she's saying, but the problem with this point of view is that it completely disregards the fact that phone books used to be a thing. Now, for those of you Zoomers who don't know what a phone book is, back in the day, everybody's name, address, and phone number in your area, anyway, your local area, was listed in a phone book. And so if you wanted to look up somebody's number and call them, all you had to do was pull out your phone book. Everyone had one. They were given away by the city once a year for free with updates and every yearly revision. And the concept of the phone book has since fallen out of style. Nobody knows what they are anymore. Nobody cares about them. But they are new enough that back during Gamergate, back in 2014 when Gamergate was happening, and Zoe Quinn was screaming bloody murder about being doxxed by people, it turns out that her doxing came from the phone book. Because in 2014, they were on their way out, but they weren't gone yet. And anyone who lived in her area or her family's area could simply look her up in the phone book. The argument against doxing back then was that if you could find it in a phone book, it wasn't doxing because that was absolutely publicly available information. And that seems like a good argument, even now. There's a difference, though. There's no more phone books. And not only is there no more phone books, people are way crazier nowadays than they were in 2014. Cancel culture was minuscule back then compared to now. But still, Dankula seems to have a good solution here. If we can consider data to be property, and therefore it can only legally be shared with the person's express permission, then I think that would solve a lot of the problems. But not all of them. There are absolutely some people out there who just don't give a shit. They'll say, you know what? I like Facebook too much. I like Instagram too much. I like TikTok too much. Fuck it. You can have all the data. I don't care. Here it is. I'll gladly sign whatever piece of paper you put in front of me so I can use these fun services. And then, when they go out and get fucking cancelled because all their data's out there, it'll be too late. That being said, it's a far better solution than the government forcing all social media to collect everyone's data and remove anonymity in the process. That sounds absolutely fucking terrible. I wouldn't mind a world where there's like a set of social media platforms that are old, archaic, and completely data collection heavy, and then a set of newer social media platforms that are more anonymized. I'm okay with that. But like I said at the beginning of the video, this is only partially about being anonymous. It is more importantly about the destruction of the concept of privacy and what it does to those people who have been affected by it. I mentioned Academic Agent earlier, but there have been many YouTubers and content creators who have had their lives destroyed by hate viewers. And those people, in order to survive, because they're now completely unemployable, they have to rely on basically the charity of their viewers, whether that be through watching ads on YouTube or Twitch or wherever they happen to be putting their stuff, through donations, through subs on Twitch, through super chats, through Patreon or Subscribestar donations, whatever it is. As more people express wrong opinions and are cancelled for it, more and more of them turn towards crowdfunding to stay alive. And then those people who hold the same opinions, but, still manage to have an income, and let's assume that they actually care about supporting the YouTubers and content creators that they like, well, now they have to support another one, and another one, and another one. It almost feels like a long war of attrition to slowly destroy those people who are ideologically opposed to wokeness. If your opposition cannot even provide for themselves and their family, then one, they're less able to move against you, And 2, that is an extra burden on their community for those people who still can support themselves. This is the reality of the culture war. It's not going to be a bloody conflict or a riot in the streets. Those do happen, but those are primarily a distraction. The real war is a slow, steady march to destroy all dissent. This is the main reason why alt tech has to survive. Because if it doesn't, there will be no anonymity. It will be a dystopia where you have no privacy and everything you do is watched. And every single dumbfuck progressive out there will cheer it on until the day it finally comes for them. You use the wrong pronoun, you tell the wrong joke, you make the wrong hand gesture, say the wrong word, wear the wrong clothes, order the wrong food, sing the wrong song. Nobody can keep track of all of their rules, so eventually everyone slips up. And as soon as you do, you're far right, you're a bigot, you're Islamophobic, you're a knuckle-dragger, you're hateful, you're white trash, you're a patriarch. All of your previous virtue signaling counts for nothing. You can never be forgiven. You will always be that person who did that problematic thing. You'll be unemployable, unlovable, unwanted. You will be exactly like those people that you currently torment. This is the brave new world you've created. Welcome to the purity spiral. It's a long way down. Hey guys, that's the end of the video, so thanks for watching. What I described here has also unfortunately happened to my roommate. Simply through his association with me, he actually lost his job. And until he can get back up on his feet, he's helping me out with my projects and this channel supporting him too. So if you're interested in keeping us going, please consider dropping by our gaming channel. Tomorrow night we're playing the Skyward Sword HD release. We actually have a pretty big event planned for it, so it'll be, I think, a pretty fun stream. Thanks very much for your support, and I'll see you there. I love you.